Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Shine Wealthy. I am super excited to share one of my mastermind sisters and friends, Lorry Belhumeur, and we are going to be chatting all about her book, Mastering Resilience. So good. And I'm so lucky to have a signed copy. I got to have that last time we got to connect on our retreat, which was so fun. So Lorry, welcome. I am so excited to talk about this book with you.
It's so great to be here, Christine, and with you, and just your light that just shines out there. So I just really appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation.
Yeah. I want to talk about, the word resilience, for people who are not quite sure what that means, what does resilience mean to you? And, I know you and I feel that it's a really important topic and concept, but, can we talk a little bit about, start there on what is actually resilience?
So I think you bring up a good point. It's, there's no universal definition of resilience. It means different things to different people. But, as a psychologist, I kind of gravitate toward the American Psychological Association definition, and then all of the other things, because the book is a recipe for mastering resilience. So there's all these elements. It's really the ability to adapt to adversity, to really, because adversity inevitably, comes, and it's our ability to kind of, adjust and adapt to it and come out stronger on the other side of adversity. And I know that, sometimes people say it's like a bounce back, and the bounce back sort of, implies that you bounce back in the same condition, like a ball's like the same when it bounces back. And it's really not that in a way. So I love the example that Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey give in their book, What Happened to You? And it also mentions adversity and adverse childhood experiences specifically. They're called ACEs. And what they said is like a coat hanger, the coat hanger can get bent and it can be used for, to unlock a car door or whatever. But when you put it back, it's never quite the same.
Yes.
It can still be, used as a hanger, but it's never quite, there might be a kink in it or something. And so that's really what it is. It's a transformation. It's what happens to get on the other side of adversity.
So beautiful. Yeah. Whenever I think about things not popping back exactly, I think of when I had my children. I've had 3 children, and I feel like I've been remodeled after each time. It's never goes back to the same, but you go through this process, this transformation of bringing life into the world, and then your body just shifts. It's just not the same.
Well, and if I can add to that, it's, our emotions and our perspective on the world is never the same after we have children, so we're changed, when that happens in every way,
Totally. Well, I would love for you to just share a little bit about you. Like, you have a background. Maybe when you said psychology, I'm like, oh, we forgot to say that. Like, tell us who you are and what you do and all that good stuff.
Well, I'll just say, because I have a Ph.D., that people refer to me as Dr. Resilience, like colleagues and friends, because really what I can share is that I've often been told that I'm the epitome of resilience. And so, I've had a tremendous amount of adversity, in my life from childhood forward, more than most. That's subjective completely. And so, I started out young, ultimately with a single mom, when I was 6 months old. And so so I was sort of like a really happy kid in a way. I just saw a picture recently of when I was like 4 years old, and I'm, holding a telephone and I'm smiling. And I looked at it, and I said to myself, that was before it all started to happen.
Right.
So I refer to it in terms of ACEs, as I mentioned earlier, adverse childhood experiences. And what those are specific, 10 specific adversities. And we use them because there's data around them. So there's like what happens when kids have ACEs. So they're in the categories of abuse, neglect, and family dysfunction. And so there are 10 of them. I had 5 before the second grade.
Oh, wow.
8 before I graduated high school. And so again, abuse, neglect. So you asked me about me, who I am. That's not my identity. So who I am is a woman who is passionate about bringing hope to the masses, especially those who've experienced so much adversity, especially childhood adversity, trauma. And it's really hope that there's something on the other side of that, right? So in the face of many, and I do tell some stories in the book, and I selected them based on, giving hope to the reader, if somebody can withstand this, and there's other stories in there too, then wow, I can do it too. It's possible. And so I'm resilient. I'm a published, best-selling, award-winning author.
Yeah,
it's just happened recently.
Yes, congratulations.
I'm in the nonprofit leadership world, and have just blessed with being able to impact tens of thousands of children, youth, and families a year. And so it's just I've become this leader, and just by virtue of that have been able to have a wider and wider and wider impact, and then the ripple effect that happens through that. So that's who I am. I think if I just talk about my qualities and just what I'm passionate about, that's who I am.
Amazing. So what was your I know you wanted to bring hope to the world through mastering resilience, but what was some of the pivotal things where you're like, you know what, I think I need to put this in a book?
Well, a lot of it, as I was, even when I was having adversity as an adult and realizing, my goodness, do I attract this stuff? There were so many things. Speaking of, having children, I had 4 miscarriages before I had my first child, and then immediately had a second one because I didn't want, I figured, oh, my body knows what to do now. And, just, so there's been just many things, and each one is really pivotal. But I think when I was in my 20s was the first time someone said, you should write a book. So at some point I said, oh, it's a series because there's so many, so many lessons, that have been learned through adversity to, again, give hope and be on the other side of it. And I think the pivotal point was, I know exactly what it was. Now, that's a great question, because it was when my daughters were teenagers. And certainly there were pivot points, when I got married, and then when the children were young, and then, when they were teenagers. And when I was a teenager, there were really, there was major trauma, an assault that happened. It was really traumatic. And so when they were teenagers, I was like, I was regressed to the time when I was a teenager in order to heal that, right? And so what I knew I wanted to do was, I even made a little film about it back then, is like, I don't want any 17-year-old girl to be in their 50s before they finally get it, that they're loved, that they're cherished, they're wanted and worthy. And so it was really like, that's what I need to do. I need to get the message out there. And so initially it was developing a course for mastering resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we mentioned the name of the book. Did we mention it? It's like Mastering Resilience, Transforming into Your Purpose. That, like, yes, we did. And so it really is that process of transformation. And it was originally written for leaders and influencers of youth, you know, that are leaders and influence that, you know, that they have teachers or counselors or coaches and people that, you know, have youth that depend on them.
Right.
And so some of it's written to that person. And then what was amazing is that the feedback, the people who it's getting into the hands of are beyond my wildest dreams. It's not just leaders and influencers of youth. It's attorneys and med students and businessmen and entrepreneur and, you know, 8-figure business CEOs and, you know, and they're giving me feedback that it's transformed their lives, and they share about how that's happened, which is the other book that's coming up, Becoming Super Resilient, because we need to tell their stories as well.
Yeah.
How, you know, they've developed and mastered resilience along the way in their, you know, in their journey.
Yeah.
Success.
Amazing. So you talk about a recipe in mastering resilience. Would you be open to sharing a little bit of that recipe so that people can hear a little bit more about the process that you take people through to master resilience?
Yes, absolutely. So the recipe is 8 ingredients, and how it was derived really was on my 30 years of professional experience as a college instructor, as a teacher. I have an educational and a psychological background, and then as a psychologist, and then sort of, you know, having a wider and wider sphere of influence as, you know, someone in private practice, as a supervisor, a clinical supervisor. So I just took all of those years of experience and extracted, like kind of reverse engineered what works. And so what works in terms of, you know, mastering resilience. And so and it was really, that was the process. And so there are 8 ingredients. And the first one, we've some of us have heard you know, talking about having a why, having a vision, having, you know, and I call it the big why. And it's really, it's not only the vision of, you know, what we want in the future and, you know, where we want to live and, you know, those kind of things. It's really like having a handle on who do I get to be when I've reached the place of success where I look at it and go, oh, I'm there. Now there's always another goal, right? But it's the inspiration. Yeah. And that's the big why. And then the why now is the commitment. It's the stake in the ground to say, I have a stake in this. I have, you know, I'm committed now. I'm pivoting now. And that changes because I mentioned, you know, when I first got married, my stake in the ground is I'm not going to ruin my marriage. I'm not going to do that. My mom's been, you know, married 5 times or was married 5 times. And that's not for me, you know, and I was well into my 30s before, you know, I got married. So that was the stake in the ground at that time. I'm going to, you know, my marriage is going to be successful. I'm not going to get divorced. Yeah. And then when I had babies, like, oh my gosh, you know, stake in the ground. I'm going to be a better parent than how I was parented. And so that's like the commitment then. And that was like when the teenagers, you know, commitment right now, it's a recommitment to this healing journey. And then there's been others, you know, along the way. And even writing the book, there's a stake in the ground now to get this message out there that it's possible to be on the other side of adversity and flourish, thrive on the other side of it, and to use the adversity to see our strengths that we have inside of us that make us, on the other side of it, right?
That's
And
beautiful.
so those are the first two. It's, the big why and the why. And then the next, there's so many other factors in it, and we want to go in order, at least in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And so I also have, it's not an ingredient, but I have a chapter specifically on ACEs. So just like, what are those, and you can measure what, how many you've had. And then there's so much around clarity of self. Who am I? And really getting in there. There are exercises to say, this is who I am. I'm courageous. I'm resilient. I'm loved. I'm worthy, wanted, all of those things, like who I am. So that we have these I am declarations that we refer back to. And it's really, the exercises are designed, the book, the narrative is really designed to walk you through the process of really getting in there and who have I become in the face of that adversity? What qualities and characteristics and strengths, as I mentioned, that are direct result, of that adversity. And then there's an ingredient that's kind of combines those three first ones, and it's a strategy. And it's a way to, become aware of, where you are in the moment. So it's like mindfulness, like, what's my posture, how am I feeling? What am I telling myself? And, so that's, another part of it. And then, acknowledging that value, those I am statements, and then, what's the next best step? So that's the strategy that goes with that. And then, interestingly, once you sort of have that, have all of those ingredients, because the first time you want to go in order is compassion. And it's different than forgiveness. It's compassion for yourself and for others. And it's, it's, sometimes feel, well, that's easy to say,
I was just thinking that might even be a process, right?
Yes, it is. And so I use compassion specifically because forgiveness is a big lift, almost like a lift of biblical proportion, right?
Totally.
About it. And compassion is really taking those ingredients of who I am, having that clarity, and then just using that and going back and being kind, being kind to yourself as much as you are to others, and we learn earlier on that, we say things to ourselves that we would never, ever say to a living human being. We would, and so we realize we've learned in the earlier parts of, what are those things, and let's shift those and be, kinder to ourselves. And then after all of that, this is where I kind of mentioned it earlier, but it's reframing the adversity. It's not denying it. It's not forgive and forget. It's, in fact, it's acknowledging I was hurt. It was awful. I'm angry, whatever those things are, and looking at who I've become in the face of it. I am compassionate. I am courageous. I am transformed. I am a leader. I am a successful business person. I'm a good and loyal wife. So those things, I didn't want to get divorced 5 times, or, married 5 times like my mom. And so that was a choice that I made in my life. And let me just also say that I come from a place of such compassion for my mom. She said she did the best she could, and she did do the best she could. My grandmother, she was a single mom in the 40s, my grandmother.
Wow. So was mine. That's incredible.
Right?
Wow.
So, wow. wow, because that's courageous,
Yeah.
know
Heck
you're going
yeah,
to be
it is.
done. And so when I started to learn about the data and research around ACEs, my grandmother had them, my mother had them, and they didn't know what it was called then. I didn't know even what it was called when I was little.
Yeah.
But there are predictable risks that are
Wow.
associated without intervention. And I look at, my mom has passed, and we reconciled completely before her passing. But what I want to say is that she demonstrated, she lived out, not manifested, she lived out the risks that are associated with ACEs.
Wow.
And she didn't have any intervention, along the way,
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really turning it around, the past adversity. And then we have an opportunity when we're faced with adversity as adults. Sometimes those things that come up in the present, help us heal those traumas and those adversities from the past. And I tell a very poignant story. And I'll share it, is that I mentioned the assault when I was a teenager, and something really, during the 2008 financial crisis that anybody who's been around kind of knows about, things that fell apart economically at that time. And so that was happening in our lives, here, my husband and I. And so that event in 2008, 2009 brought back, now I had never forgotten it. I always knew that it had happened, but it brought it back because I was like, these feelings I'm having right now are completely out of proportion, for this, what's going on right now. Oh, the feelings are attached to that event decades earlier. And so it's a reframing of that, and it's allowing me personally to heal when we look at adversity as a learning opportunity and a healing opportunity and get to the other side of it.
Lori, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm gonna, holy cow, right? And so then once we've done all of that, it's really kind of, going back to our big why, and really, operationalizing it in a way, and I tend to be on the intellectual side community, but this is really a process of like, what's my plan? What's my goal? What are my goals that are going to get me there? What are the action steps that are going to get me there? Just one, even if you just say, okay, this is one goal. It could be a goal for a week from now. It could be a goal from a year from now. It could be tied to the big why, but it's really like, it's being confident that we can set and achieve those goals with all of the other ingredients behind us, knowing, making us strong. And then of course, just like you have a community. And so that's really the final thing, is be in community with others that are on that healing journey of mastering resilience. And so that is what this book is about. And when we think about like, well, what's at the end of mastering resilience? It really is an identity of super resilient. Like even get into like, when we're working with kids, we're like, what are your superpowers? What are those things that are strong? And so super resilient. And so the super resilient on the personal side is mastering resilience. And then there's super resilient leadership, and using the ingredients in leadership to help you be a better leader. And all that means is it's in order to influence the people that are in our care or who depend on us. We can't teach what we haven't learned, right? If I'm a teacher and I'm teaching trigonometry, in high school, I wanted to be a math teacher, believe it or not. And so I use this, And so, if I'm teaching calculus, but I've never passed trigonometry, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Totally.
And so when I've gone through this mastering resilience process as a leader, focusing on how I can be a better leader by following, the recipe, then it allows others the freedom to do the same. And
Mhm.
you can, bring them along in community.
Yeah.
And then, because I've been in sort of a CEO of a multi-8-figure business, there's also, what does it look like to have a super resilient business? And,
Mm.
it started small and it's bigger now, right? I'm not the founder, but it's, bigger now.
Mhm.
And so it's, it just embodies that resilience, that, process of it, and helping, build a more resilient, super resilient workforce, things like that.
Wow,
So I
that's
just went off.
incredible.
Yeah,
No,
sorry.
I love it. This is
Okay.
fantastic. I mean, we need, a couple things that, when you were talking, I love the I am statement that we get to claim, because it really is important that we don't see our identity as what happened
That's
to
exactly
us,
right.
but we get to see that, our identity as something completely different. And
Yes.
I know that, with belief work and mindset work,
Mhm,
I've had to redo that myself too, where
mhm,
we're, whenever we go through things, we can tend to identify with the adversity or the event
mhm,
rather
right.
than who we really are internally at our core. And
Mhm,
giving people that tool to take that on, I think is so, so
mhm,
powerful. I wish I would have had that when I was a kid. We didn't
right?
know, gosh,
Yeah.
like I think, and I love that you're also talking about, the compassion piece really is, I think, so important, because you're right. When you think about forgiving somebody or forgiving a situation that seems like so far away,
Mhm,
versus, what, I can have compassion for myself that I went through it, and I can have compassion for the person or the event or whatever it was, so that you can actually move through it,
yes.
instead of feeling like you've got to forgive somebody,
Right.
which sounds more like it was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And
Yeah.
it was not. And
Yeah.
there's no
Never.
amount of convincing that would ever say that it was. And
Yeah.
I think the other element of the I am is really getting in touch with, who I am intrinsically, like,
Hmm.
the value that I have because I exist, because I'm on this planet, because,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and so there's that I am, and then there's the other I am of, who I've become.
Yes.
So there's
Yes.
both of those
Yeah.
that really get anchored in through this
Oh,
process.
I love that differentiation, because you're
Mhm,
right. We do have this internal I am, just because we were born, and we
mhm,
all have that ability to create and do whatever it is that we are. We're inherent worthiness,
mhm,
right?
right,
It's
exactly.
not
Yeah.
like, when when the baby, the yellow booties are worthy, but the blue booties,
Oh, yes, yes. Oh, God,
you
yes,
don't get to
yes.
do, like, you're going to
No,
be homeless, and because you're not worthy, and you're going to be amazing because you've got, like,
no.
we all have that
Yeah,
same.
we all have it. And that's, I think, honestly, the main key. And so what I can say is that one of the predictors of success for children, in
Mm,
terms of the trajectory, even in the face of adversity, is having a stable, dependable adult who believes in them.
wow.
So that person who believes in them is speaking into them their positive qualities. You can do this. You're strong. Oh my gosh, you're so creative. And they're
Mhm,
just, you're such a good athlete. They're just
mhm,
speaking things into them. Sometimes it's a coach,
mm.
sometimes it's a teacher, sometimes it's a parent, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's not a parent. Um,
Yeah.
but it's really like those things that that people recognize when we're
Yeah.
younger. And sometimes it is though, they are those unique things about us. And I have a little tiny story about that. So I had second grade, I've always said second grade, she could have been my third grade teacher. But she, back then, you could get in trouble and sent to the principal's office for talking.
Mm.
You just give
Yep.
you something called a referral, and you're in the principal's office. And so I would finish my work first, and or early.
Yeah.
And I might have wanted to talk, or
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because I'm done, like,
Yeah.
oh, how's it? And she said, I noticed that you finished first. Will you be my helper? Will you go around and collect the papers or help people that haven't finished? So she saw that strength in me. She saw that I was smart. She spoke those words into me. And I remember her to this day as being an influence in my life.
Yeah.
In a positive way. And there have been, every step of the way, there have been others. There have been neighbor, my friends' moms, just all along the way in my entire life. And I have mentors today. All along the way.
So beautiful. As you're talking, when you were talking about people that speak into you, I have got some very specific people that I can, my fifth grade teacher, Mr. Smith, he just was always, even when I think about him, I just feel like I was supported and important and
Yes.
smart and
Yes.
and even though I don't have like a specific situation, when I think about people who had an impact on me, that was definitely one.
Yes.
My grandmother was definitely the one that was, you are strong and you are capable and you can do this. And, I look forward to actually reading Mastering Resilience with the understanding that my grandmother didn't necessarily have those tools, but she actually did, me an amazing service by speaking into and showing me how she went through resilience and helping me through that too.
That's exactly right. Because she is, I've heard, stories about her, an amazing woman and absolutely an epitome of resilience.
Yeah.
So that would be great. I'd love to hear after you've read it again, from that perspective. I'd be very interested in that.
Totally. Wow. Lori, this is so amazing. I know I can see just in our conversation why it has got such a wide range of people that are like, this is transformational.
Yes.
Because, I had no idea that there was anything such as ACEs, and so when I look back on, my life and the different things that, I've gone through as a child and then also adversity into an adult, I don't think as humans, any of us are not going to be subject to that in some way, shape, or form. So having this as a resource is incredible. I'm going to buy one for each one of my kids. It would be amazing. The things I'm like, God, I wish I had this to understand that, and there's a process that we get to go through. And, I'm not alone.
Right.
And, there wasn't something wrong with me because this happened. Right.
Yes. And we shift, actually, thank you for saying that, because we've shifted the language in the field of, trauma informed care. We've shifted the language from what's wrong with you to what happened to you.
Yeah.
How can I help?
Yeah.
And then I take it a step further and say, what's strong in you? So not what's wrong with you, what's strong in you. And that is the thing that's going to take us to the, next level of resilience. And
I love that. I love that shift. It reminds me where, we tend to focus on all of the things that have gone wrong versus all of the things that have, the positive, the silver lining, things that we've, managed and come from, for sure.
Yeah. And you mentioned something, because it's really that mindset shift, right? It's that shift of, you did it earlier. Like some people say, I have to. And then the shift is, I get to.
Yeah.
You said, I get to.
Yeah.
So it's that just one word is a positive.
Yeah.
Focus.
Totally. It changes.
So there's, it shifts everything.
I'm excited for your workbook. You're working on a workbook for this too.
It's coming out. Yes. It's very close to, it's actually at the publisher. It's very close
no way.
getting its finishing touches on it. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Amazing.
Yes.
Lori, this is incredible. Is there anything else that you want to share about resilience or the book or anything that you feel is important to share with our people?
Well, what's coming to me is if you want to know more about ACEs, there's something called an ACEs screener, and you can Google that and go online. What I encourage you to do is also look at, I think it's something like your number story, so that you get also the context and resources. If you find out you do have ACEs, there are resources out there beyond, what I'm sharing. My book is not a substitute for mental health care. So sometimes it's important to make sure that you seek that first.
Yeah.
And if you really want to know more about me, or, the process of mastering resilience, it's easy to remember. It's masteringresilience.com. And there's a way to get a hold of me there. And I really look forward to, what I want to say is, like, I hope this serves your audience. I really, like, that's where my heart is.
Yeah.
And that they, receive hope, from this
Absolutely.
conversation.
Oh, I'm receiving hope just from listening to the conversation. I don't think anybody will walk away not feeling, like, oh, wow, like definitely hope, also inspiration.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Totally inspire. You always inspire me. So I'm
Oh.
grateful to be in community with you.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned community as well, because that has been a game changer for me as well, to be in community and to have women that are cheering you on and are
Yes.
lifting you up, or or others. If
Yeah.
you're not a woman, if you're a man, or
Yeah.
male. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that also is important, that people who are around you and your community are those who cheer you on. Sometimes we're in community with people that don't do that. And so we really want to seek out the community that really offers that for us. And sometimes it's just a few people.
Yeah. So good. Lorry, thank you so much. So I am going to, for those of you that are watching, make sure you check the description. I will be having, the link will be there. That way you can just click on it and go to masteringresilience.com, get Lorry's book. It's so good. It's so amazing. You will love it. And reach out. I know Lorry, and I know she wants to hear from you on, any questions you may have.
Yes. And the other, the Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. So there's, places to find me there, which we'll probably put.
We'll put all of that in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely have multiple places that you can connect and stay in touch with Lorry. And you have a newsletter too, because I'm on it. So
that's great. There's an opportunity.
So
yes, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So good.
Okay. What a pleasure. Thank you so much, Chris. And, it's likewise. I just so believe in what you're doing and in you. You're just amazing and tremendous and impactful in the work that you do as well. So
thank you.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Awesome. All right, everybody. We will see you next time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening.